All right, next we are going to talk about reviving California's compassion programs, a super important topic. We're so happy to have some legends in the industry here with us today to hear updates about these California cannabis compassion programs, which were reenacted in March 2020 by Senate Bill 34 to restore a legal and tax-exempt pathway for licensed cannabis retailers to provide free cannabis or cannabis products to qualified medicinal patients or their primary caregivers. So today I'm happy to introduce you to Sara and Payan. Is that how you say it? You'll have to correct me.
Oh, Payan. No, you're good. Payan, yeah.
Payan, a nationally recognized and award-winning cannabis educator, public policy advocate, writer, and consultant. Sara is the public education officer for the Apothecarium in San Francisco. And for 3 years, she was the vice chair of the San Francisco Cannabis State Legalization Task Force and currently holds the seat representing medical cannabis patients and compassion programs on the San Francisco Cannabis Oversight Committee. She also hosts the Planted podcast on the Radio Misfits podcast network, which if you haven't listened to, definitely check out. Welcome, Sara. She will be moderating this conversation today. I'm also grateful to welcome Joe, the founder and director of the Sweetleaf Collective. He's been an activist in the Bay Area for more than 20 years. Since 1996, the Sweetleaf Collective has been working with low-income, terminally ill patients, facilitating the giveaway of compassionate cannabis. Sweetleaf is the oldest continuously operating collective in the Bay Area and has helped cultivators and dispensaries connect with those most in need. These cultivators have given away more than $2 million worth of medical cannabis to Sweetleaf's patients, and the compassionate cannabis is delivered by bicycle messengers by residents of San Francisco. Give it up for Joe. Thanks for being here. Next, I'm happy to introduce you to Sean Kiernan, the current president of Weed for Warriors. From 1989 to 1993, Sean served in the U.S. Army as airborne infantry in Latin America. After leaving the Army, he worked as a hedge fund manager on Wall Street. Everything went relatively smooth until 2006, when the mental and emotional trauma from his combat experiences finally started to catch up with him. Founded in the San Francisco Bay Area by a Marine Corps veteran, the Weed for Warriors project brings together veterans who find solace in cannabis and need like-minded peers to share their experiences with. In the past, Weed for Warriors has used its network to connect veterans to affordable or free cannabis products. However, with Prop 64, the law that regulated the commercial sale of adult use cannabis in California, launching in 2018, giving away cannabis for free was no longer an option for many years. So we're happy that it's back, and we definitely need to work together to figure out how to get these compassion programs up and running across California. Finally, I'm happy to introduce you to Ryan Miller, the founder of Operation EVAC, which stands for Educating Veterans About Cannabis. Ryan is on a mission to support the growth and healing of veterans through mutual assistance, personal development, and community service. Ryan works in partnership with cannabis dispensaries to offer community building, educational service, and compassionate care to veterans. The core idea of the organization is that cannabis can play a meaningful role in healing our warriors. Thank you all so much for spending your Sunday with us. Sara, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's been a long road. We have had so many dedicated people who have done a lot of great work in 215 days, but people really had to get together and work hard to pass the bill for compassion programs, which my 3 colleagues that are here today were a huge part of. So really just take a moment to thank them for all their hard work. And then we're going to jump into it. So what I'd like to first talk about is when we talk about compassion, there's a lot of different models actually around compassion programs. The compassion program that I ran for 5 years, and I'm just starting again this October, is very different than what Joe does, what Ryan does, or what Sean does. So let's have a little discussion about what that means for each of us. So Joe, would you like to start and talk about your program a little bit and what your compassion program, how you visualized it?
Sure. So, for years, for over 20 years, we were getting cannabis donated from cultivators, bringing it down from the Emerald Triangle, packaging it up, and then bike messengering it free of charge to patients' homes. And, all that changed with the passage of Proposition 64. We are no longer allowed to do bike messengering. We're no longer allowed to be plant touching. We were still operating between Prop 64 passing and SB 34 passing. And what we did in that time period, we had to do fundraising to pay the taxes on the cannabis that we were giving away and basically pay the state so that we could operate our nonprofit. But now, it's similar to what we were doing then. We are not allowed to be plant touching. The BCC still has not released their nonprofit feasibility study that was originally supposed to be released, a long time ago, over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. So what we do, is work with permit holders. So we have partners, multiple partners at every stage of the supply chain. And, we definitely like to get retail ready product, but we have gotten, for example, a donation from Happy Day Farms and got that through the supply chain, got it tested, got it trimmed up, got it packaged, and then got it out to our patients through Spark. And so we've navigated the whole supply chain, for Compassion. And what we're doing now, we've been working a lot with Padre Moo, and they are doing deliveries. We're getting donations from brands and distributors, and then we're getting it out to our patients through Padre Moo, through delivery, specifically because of COVID. And then we're also maxing out our patients. So for medical patients right now, the maximum daily limit is a half a pound. So we give our patients 2 ounces a month. So what we do is with those deliveries, we give them a half pound and they're good for 4 months. And so that's sort of where we're at right now. And yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you. Ryan.
Yeah.
How about you?
Thank you for asking. I think it's a great question. For me, the opportunity to serve as a conduit for Compassion has been an opportunity to carry the torch for Vietnam veteran Dennis Perone. I was honored to meet him at the Castro Castle, and that experience resonates with me, and his spirit resonates with me. So to be able to serve, in that role it means everything. Our work is a little different. We do 90-minute social support groups. So for an hour, we sit in circle and we share stories. We practice forming positive narratives about our experiences, avoid the veteran as victim mentality. And it's also an exercise in public speaking, which is both a social and employable skill. And then we would distribute compassionate cannabis because the affordability of cannabis is a primary concern for veterans, often on fixed incomes, absent any sort of VA coverage. And then lastly, we'll facilitate a 20-minute guided meditation by Jane Leonard. It's called I Rest Yoga Nidra. So the first part of the, love Jane, love Yoga Nidra, absolutely. So the first part of the class, we laugh a lot and sometimes cry. And then the last part of the class, we sometimes snore. And so if I can get all of those human emotions in a 90-minute session, I go get an ice cream cone. But I say that to say this, for us in our practice, cannabis is fantastic, but it's kind of like bait, right? It gets the troops to come in and create relationships. It gets troops to share their stories, share their shit, right? It gets troops to come in and meditate, get a little namaste in their life, right? So yes, cannabis is fantastic. Couldn't do it without it. Couldn't do it without our dispensary partners, like the Apothecarium that Sara leads over there. Couldn't do it without Sweetleaf Joe leading the SB 34 initiative and sharing so much of his donations with us. Couldn't do it without Sean Kiernan leading the way with all the organizing and getting troops to show up in Sacramento and at the Capitol. So it really is a collective. I see Crystals in here. I see Filigreens in here, Ramon and Padre Moo. Like it takes this whole family, this whole ecosystem. And I would argue that in the most militaristic country on earth, it's your moral obligation to warmly welcome home the troops. And we're glad to give you a pathway for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And Sean, how is your approach? How do you see it?
Right. I mean, it's the veteran population is a very diverse group, and from your my conservative veteran friends call me a communist from Berkeley, and my liberal friends in the cannabis space think I'm a dick. So it's a very diverse group in that trying to find one size fit all or how we look at it isn't applicable to everybody. So the way we approach it is very much a community. And just like your regular community, we don't always have to see eye to eye. But what cannabis really is at the heart of it for us is it's a substitute for the opiates that carry with it addiction and overdose. It's a substitute for the antidepressant medicine that the VA gives us that comes with suicidal inclinations or suicidal thoughts. I mean, these are FDA stated risks. These aren't make stuff up. This is science. And when we look at cannabis, regardless of what you think about it or how screwed up the science is on it, at least the research, FDA research is on it, the one thing that's not arguable is a safer alternative. And not only is it a safer alternative to opiates, not only is it a safer alternative to psych meds, not only is it a safer alternative to the anxiety meds, not only is it a safer alternative to the sleep meds, we don't die from it. It's a safer alternative to alcohol. There's less domestic violence when cannabis is in the home. These are all issues that hit us specifically. And so when we talk about it, it's really about access. And that's what SB 34 comes to. SB 34 is about access. Right now with veterans, they're 100% disabled vet, and that's not most of them, is a $3,000 a month in federal dollars that they get. With our current tax and regulate system without SB 34, most of these vets, if they had to, buy through the dispensary on average throughout the state, it would be above, easily a third of their income a month would go to it. And that makes it prohibitively not a reasonable assumption. And then we force them onto the illicit market where they're more likely to have the untested meds that are poisonous because of diversion. They're more likely to get hemmed up in the legal process, the judicial process. And so the question we ask is, what did we do with Prop 64, if that's still the case? And so SB 34 is about access, and it's about, giving everyone the choice to medicate safely. You see Trump in the way he's medicating with COVID. Don't we wish we all had that health care? And I think at the end of the day, a lot of our veterans are looking from the outside in. A lot of poor people are looking from the outside in this new tax and regulate cannabis model, wondering, are we really better off? And that's something we need to address.
Yeah, I completely agree. For myself, compassion was a huge thing. I got into cannabis. I was in civil rights, and I got into cannabis after when I was 37. I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, and I used it during my treatment. I didn't know as much about it then as I do today. Could have done a lot more to help. And when you have a life-changing experience like cancer, you start to really reevaluate what's important in your life. And for me, I decided, fuck it. I wasn't going to go back to the office. And I was going to go back for my master's degree in org psych and do something more about changing the way we do work and work culture, because my thesis was going to be called "There's Nothing Human in Human Resources." But in the meantime, I wanted to get a job that could see me through school, and I wanted something where I wasn't going to be anybody's boss. So I kind of fell into my job at Apothecarium, and a huge part of my healing a year out of chemo, starting to work in a dispensary, was being able to help others, and especially other people who were going down the path that I was, and I didn't have the resources that I needed, and I wanted to make sure that that would be different for other people. We started the compassion program at Apothecarium pre-215. We ran it for 5 years, and one of the things that I really wanted to do as an advocate for patients and as an educator was, how do we create a safe space, a safe container for experimentation so people can figure out how cannabis works well for them, and to really help them with symptom management. because I'll tell you, like the first day I went to go see my oncologist, I took too much of an edible, got sky high, just stared at him like deer caught in the headlights. And I really wanted to try to avoid having that happen to people who are already going through so much. So with our program, we're not only concerned about giving safe access to cannabis through the availability, but also the usage, and getting feedback from patients so that we can figure out how to better help them, but to also take that information and educate more broadly so more people can help people who are in need. So that's what we're really looking at. So we have a survey that we have all of the patients fill out. That's what's your experience with cannabis? What are you afraid of? What do you use? What are your symptoms that would be diagnosed by a doctor? But because we have a large indigent population as well, we ask for self-diagnosis too. And so really trying to give a 360 view of what's going on with our patients so that we can help them. And then we continually check in with feedback and education so that people feel really supported. We're a much smaller group, you know, and we're starting out with 30 people this October. We've got our boxes are all set to go, but we hope to expand to a greater amount this year. We just want to see, the biggest thing is making sure that it's manageable so that it doesn't implode and we end up helping nobody. But one of the most amazing things that I've noticed is it's actually been harder to do the outreach to get people into the programs than it has been to get people to generously donate. So we've had a lot of amazing people in our community really wanting to step in and donate. And I really applaud that. And please, everybody, we all need your help, because the more people find out, the more they're going to come to us. And that's when the waters are going to break open and everybody is going to come to all of us to get help. And we're going to need your support to make sure that we can continue these programs. Now, talking about that, let's talk about some of the challenges of the programs that we've gone through. Sean, do you want to start on that?
Right. Well, let me give a shout out to my partner, Mark Carrillo, who is my CEO, two-time Fallujah Marine. He's an NCO, is super organized. And I literally get on the phone with him every day, and his frustration. In fact, he goes nuts with this legal market, having to deal with the distributors and getting stuff here or there, or these tags with track or trace is a pain in the ass. And that's really what we're finding is, you know, there's a lot of good people out there. It's getting the system to be okay with helping, one, from the dispensaries who see it as more work without much benefit, and that exists whether it's true or not, to the, you know, distribution who licenses need to talk to licenses. And that's, you know, getting us space to use non-profitable donations. And whether that's a 4x4 space, whether it's driver picking up those meds, whether it's processing. We just got a bunch of flour that you couldn't sell, but would be amazing for RSO. And so it's that network. We're reaching out to people in the industry, trying to get that processed by a legal lab. So again, I think part of it is this is new. A lot of these dispensaries still don't know much, if anything, about SB 34 or this. I mean, if you just look at the receipt we posted on the post we were involved in together leading up to this at the People's Remedy, they print out a huge receipt. And if you look at it, it's on our social media, you'll see $0, $0, $0, $6.21, a penny. And that's because the back offices are so different everywhere you go that it's something different. Every dispensary we've thrown an SB 34 event at. And so it's really just getting people comfortable with it. And what we've learned is you just have to do it. We just did another one at Perfect Union last week in Sacramento. And they were so blown away with how easy it was getting the vets there, getting that out there. From their perspective, we took care of it, that they were like, let's do Marysville. So we're going to do Marysville on October 12th. So, you know, it's part our job to sell it now, and it's part our job to hit the pavement. I mean, we bring patience and we bring a lot of energy and the narrative and exposure. But at the end of the day, we need the industry to step up. And a lot of people are stepping up. But just like any supply chain, whether it's disruptive, meaning the illicit market's being disrupted by the crackdown that will reheal and form in another way, given the profits that are out there in the illicit market, or it's a supply chain in the legal market under pressure because of taxation and overregulation. These things morph into things that work eventually. And so what we hope is that we can get the industry, the patients, and the BCC to come together and make it as easy, and it's not going to happen overnight, as possible.
Yeah. I really feel that I think the onus is on us to put together best practices so people can be more plug and play so that they'll participate more, because people are really worried about disruption of operations, but it can actually be really easy if we do it the right way.
And to give you an example, we had a large donation, and this is just a real world example that happened 4 weeks ago. We were getting a donation to an LA dispensary that was going to do a SB 34 event. All medicine was coming from us and the brands, nothing they were bringing to the table. We talked to them, said, okay, there's like 1,000 units. No problem. Put them in touch. Literally, owners were saying no problem. Manager said no problem, but wasn't really focused on it until the shipment on a Friday showed up to their door. And he called Mark and said, Mark, I can't process it. Mark's like, I told you exact number of units. You had to manifest. What's the issue? Sorry, I can't do it. I only have 4 people. Sent it off. And now we got all this effort that went there. We had a distributor in Adelanto that was going to take it. So we had a distributor to take it over and drop it off, right?
Right.
But now we've got to get another distributor to pick it up, right? And deliver it to one or multiple donation sites, hopefully multiple. The distributor owner passed away, unfortunately, a month ago, Ale, who some of you knew. And our donation was sitting in there, and some wonderfully people who worked there put it together, got it on a truck, and then was rejected at one of the dispensaries in San Jose. Other ones took it because they didn't like the way the manifest with the tags was. So again, one thing we've learned is some people are really anal, rightfully so, and other people are a lot more lenient with this stuff. And the BCC is probably a lot more lenient people think. They just want a good effort at trying to make it work. So it's really just navigating the expectations. It's navigating the reality that we live in a track or trace world. And when donations exist with no profits, there's no profit or incentive to make these things work. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to really push that the incentive is that we're here today because of the backs of all the patients that we stand on.
100%. And I think that's one of the offensive things to us and the veteran community and non-veteran community, being used for many years on the medical side to promote legalization. And then to see where tax and regulate has gone, which is just pure profit motive and tax motive. And ironically enough, the profit motive is not manifesting like people had hoped, for reasons that we can get into. And we need to address this for everybody's sake, because without a strong supply chain, none of this is going to work out.
Yeah. It has to be a strong, sustainable supply chain. And I think that's why, like, really putting together some best practices so that organizations don't have to think about it so much is probably going to be a great way to get more people taking part. Joe, what are you seeing for challenges?
Well, I have a very similar challenge like Sean had. I was working with Ali as well. He passed on, and there was issues with that distribution permit and some of the investors, and things sort of started to fall apart, and we had to get this $500,000 donation that we had been trying to get retested and reconfigured to get to patients. And we had to scramble in like a week to try to get it to another location. So, going back to the nonprofit feasibility study, like, we really need that released. And once compassion programs, like independent compassion programs, you're really lucky, Sara, because you're already linked into a permit. Now, a lot of us are doing this independently, right? And so we are not allowed to be plant touching. I can't make a manifest. I don't know how to make one. But, in this sort of situation, if, for example, like Sean or if I had the ability to make a manifest, that would take some of the load off of our partners. And, one of my big things with compassion is I try to do as much heavy lifting as possible to make it as simple as possible for all of the partners to be involved. I'm like, I want to do the work. Like, this is my choice. This is my, drive. This is my mission in life. And so, I'm here to do it, but I have my hands tied because the BCC won't let me have a permit. And, so, one of the people we were working with at that distributor that had the $500,000 donation, she's handicapped. She has mobility issues. And there was things, she's like, well, I can't do this until like next week. And, things took a lot longer than planned. And I feel like if we were given the tools and the resources as compassion programs to do more of this work, it would happen faster and it would make everything easier for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I was thinking when I heard Sean talking. And that was just one example. We do have a whole bunch of partners in the supply chain, dispensaries, delivery services. And so there has been a lot of like good things that have happened. A distributor a few months back donated, I don't know, it was like $150,000 to $200,000 worth of products, and we got a bunch of it out to Weed for Warriors. Like Sweetleaf, we've kind of been doing like compassionate distribution. And so when we get a giant order, because we have this sort of informal team compassion, all of us have been working together with these different bills, trying to get the taxes taken away from compassion. We all know each other. We all know each other have integrity. And so I'm like, hey, there's all this stuff. Like, I'm going to get, I think I got like $75,000 worth of that donation to Weed for Warriors. And that all went off great, and so there is some.
That donation was ridiculous, Joe. I just want to say.
Yeah, dude, this is what teamwork looks like, man. We all lift each other up. And my kind of obsession in the industry is I'm obsessed with win-win-win-win-win situations, not just win-win. I want everybody involved feeling like they're winning, from the consumer and the compassion patient all the way up to the CEO and the owner of the business. I want everyone to feel like, wow, look at this. We're making the world a better place. And so, as much as there have been difficulties, there have been some really great stories as well. And, groups like Padre Moo, I just can't say enough good things about them. Like right now, Padre Moo is doing deliveries to Sweetleaf patients. And so, that's kind of a flip side with this Prop 64 is, since we aren't plant touching, I don't need as much of an infrastructure and as many people in my organization to do things, because, I got Padre Moo doing it. I don't need 2 or 3 of my friends on bikes doing these deliveries now, because we have partners doing it. So that's kind of simplifying things. And we've been giving, hundreds of thousands of dollars of compassion out this year. And I'm excited about that because, we have this 7-figure number where it's like, let's try to get like $1 million worth of stuff out to patients. And, the only way we can do that is with our partners. And that's why I put an emphasis on team compassion, because I might do a lot of heavy lifting, but if I didn't have the donations coming from this one distributor, and if I didn't have Padre Moo doing the deliveries, like, I'd just be some guy with a lot of good ideas and good intentions, but nothing would happen. And so, I think it's really key to understand that it takes all of us coming together to make this happen. And compassion is great because it really brings together people with a lot of heart and people who really want to make the world a better place. And I just love this. I mean, as much as SB 829 and SB 34 were like a lot of work for all of us, and it was kind of a hassle while we're doing it, now that we've gotten through it, we're like, oh, look at these people who we've been working with for years. And it's like, wow, we all got each other's backs now. We know who each other are. We know the integrity level of everybody. And, it's a little silver lining to the cloud. So sorry, I don't know if I'm talking too much.
No. What I was going to follow up with that I'm wondering if, especially after this first year, if we should all get back together and really talk about a lot of the challenges and what worked and what didn't work, because there's no reason we do work well together. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And maybe we do a report out to the state so that we can get some changes made so that we can help other compassion programs start, because we need all hands on deck.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing too, and it's something we were shooting to do this year, but then I think we were like, well, let's wait and let's push this off till next year, is we want to get a bill in Sacramento to give businesses that are participating in compassion tax credits on the state level. And so it's kind of like, being a nonprofit, the feds give you federal tax cuts, but since it's a Schedule I substance, we're not allowed to be true nonprofits. And so, I want tax credits to Filigreen, for helping us with our lighters, for Padre Move, for storage space and making deliveries. Like they could be, logging these hours and then getting California tax credit for doing that work. And the reason I think that we wanted metrics, and that now, because compassion is a designation in the metric track and trace program, they're going to be able to see better how much is going to compassion. One of the meetings I had with the state last year, where Lori Ajax is in the meeting, people from Senator Wiener's office, the head of the CDFA, CDTFA, they had their lawyers there as well. Nicole Elliott was there. And, people from the state, they were saying that they thought 25% of the cannabis produced in the industry was going to go to compassion. And that's why they were so worried about giving a tax break. And it's those numbers were ridiculous. I'm not sure where they got them from. I know that compassion has always been less than 1% of the industry. I mean, 1% would be great.
Well, it's
and
about
it's
educating,
never really
right? We have to continue.
Yeah, so we have to educate them. And then the real thing is we need data. And now, because compassion is a designation in metric, we will be able to get the data and be like, look, here's how much compassion went out. So, if we start giving tax credits for it, we can have a base to create the equation to be how much revenue would the state be losing if they gave tax credit, and encourage the nonprofit sector of our industry. Because that's really what we're talking about. Compassion is the nonprofit sector of our industry, and it needs to be supported like all other nonprofit sectors.
Oh, totally. And Joe, I don't mean to cut you off, but we could talk all day about this, but we only have 30 minutes and we went a little over. Aria, thank you for not cutting us off.
No worries. Thank you all so much
I'm
for
sorry,
being here.
everyone.
Don't be sorry. Thank you for being here.